to return to the old protocols, the stricter protocols. How concerning is it? How ominous is it? Does it feel like a step backwards?
Well, I'm the journalist who only just returned here to the training ground. It was good to see them all because it's been a long time since they've been in person. But it's disappointing that we're hearing that it's not going so well. But obviously, people's health, the country's health is more important, so we have to do everything correctly.
When you see the situation at Spurs, is there kind of an inevitability that that's going to happen at other clubs? It could happen at West Ham. How concerning is it as a manager? Because it must be a manager's worst nightmare, something like that happening.
Yeah, but it could happen in any office in the country as well. It's not just football clubs, which are sort of the ones who are getting COVID. It could be any walk of life. But I can only tell you here, we are doing everything we possibly can. We try to wear masks when we're indoors. We're washing our hands. We're sending messages to the players regular about what we do outside as much as we can. So we're trying to do everything, but obviously the COVID doesn't sort of pick and choose who it's going to jump on. We just have to, if you get it, then we just have to try and find a way of getting rid of it quickly. And I said it last night, and I really do. I wish all the Tottenham players and staff well that they go over it quickly, because it's not something anybody wants. It's not something we wish, because it's affecting the game we work in. We're getting games called off now. You're coming on and asking me that as a first question when it's a weekend of football. So I think we'd all really like for it to go away, but it's not, so we have to deal with it the best we can.
And just one final question on it. You say it doesn't pick and choose, and I think there's an attitude that, this is really disruptive for Spurs because they're going to have fixture congestion down the line. But although they're young, healthy athletes, all these guys, it could have an effect on their health as well. This is a serious virus we're talking about.
Yeah, I think. No, I'm not an expert in it. It's the health secretary and everybody else you need to ask this question to. But my understanding, it's not picking and choosing. There's a lot of young people who've become really unwell with it, and certainly, as we know, there's been a lot of deaths to a lot of older people because of it. So, people have their own choices whether they choose to be vaccinated. But the amount of people who've taken the uptake, I think it's incredible that we've got so many people vaccinated. I think it's really just disappointing now that we're back in a situation where a lot of the vaccinated people may have to suffer now as well because of the new variant we've got.
Let's talk about the football then, and I wanted to talk to you about belief and just how much that has transformed in the last year or the last couple of years. Because even this time last season, the players might have spoken it up and said, "Oh yeah, we can win any game," but would they have really believed that they could beat Liverpool and Chelsea and put 3 goals past both of them? Just how much has the mentality at the club transformed, and how much is that maybe your strongest asset?
Well, it's certainly something which we felt had to happen for us to be competitive and get better. But I think last year the players, their attitude throughout the season was unbelievable. And I think that, I think the team spirit, mentality, all the things which you need to be successful, come with winning as well. Winning beats it, makes it better. And I think we've got a really good mentality around the club at the moment. But that's something we have to keep going. We had a really good result against Chelsea, but prior to that we had a couple of results that weren't so good. So we have to make sure that we're on it all the time. We're a newish team, I think, trying to find ways of winning, trying to keep that consistency level up every week. So it's a challenge for us, but I have to say the players have done a great job.
As you said, there's no substitute for actually going and winning the games, is there? You can stand in front of them and shout and tell them they're great, but until they actually cross the line and go and beat these teams, that's when they know that we can stand toe-to-toe with anybody.
Well, that's the way we've got an attitude at the moment that we're going to challenge whoever comes in front of us. It might not always be successful. We're really positive in our approach. We want to score goals if we can. So I think all round we're determined to try and keep it going. I don't see any way that we're flinching from it. And if we can get that level of consistency and keep the whole thing moving along and keep growing with it, then hopefully we'll keep picking up wins.
Thanks, David. Best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jamie. Rebecca, you okay?
Good morning, David. How are you?
Hi, Rebecca. Hi there.
It was a great night for West Ham and the academy graduates. How important was it to give them this opportunity?
Well, I think it's always important if you can give players opportunities, but the players have to earn it, and I have to say that our young players have. They started the season really, really well with under-23s, and we got a chance to play them. If we hadn't won the games earlier, then we'd have had to go much stronger with our team. And but they'll all have heard from me that I'm not happy that we didn't win the game and we didn't compete and play better. But I still feel that to give young players an opportunity, it's now for them to grasp the next bit and try and take it to the next level.
Fourth in the Premier League table, we're coming up to halfway through the season. Do the aims still remain the same, or do you think you can push the club even further?
Well, I think at the start of the season, all I said, Rebecca, was that is there any chance we could get 2 more points than we got last year? Because that would have got Chelsea in a Champions League position. Doesn't mean to say we're going to get there, doesn't mean to say that we're competing for it. But I think the challenge is just to see if we can try and get another strong season. I was always worried that after last season you can sometimes have a little bit of a dip. So we're trying to keep those standards up. I actually think in recent weeks we can play much better than we've played. But there's 1 or 2 reasons possibly for that. But overall, the players are still producing and still performing at a high level, and we'll need that to continue right through the season.
Coming off that huge win against Chelsea last week as well, do West Ham now head into every game with nothing to fear?
I think we've always gone to every game considering the opposition and thinking about. For example, we get an incredibly tough game at Burnley. Burnley have renowned for how they play. Sean Dyche has done as good a job as any manager in the Premier League over 10 years with what he's got available to him. So, we have to in some way consider the opposition. Do we go in with no fear? No, we don't. But we go in with a real feeling of confidence that we can perform, that we can cause other teams problems as well.
Burnley as well. What can we expect, and what have you made of their season so far?
Well, I think everybody would expect us Burnley to find a way of making sure that they weren't in the bottom 3, which Sean does most seasons. I think they'll be finding it a bit tougher. I think the Premier League this year's got stronger. That's my feeling. I think there's a lot of teams got stronger, and but Sean's a real fighter. His team do brilliant things. How they stay in games, how they make it really difficult for you. They go to away games and they're very hard to beat. So Turf Moor's never been an easy place to go and get a result. We played well there last year, so I'm hoping that we can try and do the same again this season.
Thanks, Rebecca. Phil?
Morning to you, David.
Hi, Phil.
Just sticking with the theme of Burnley and Sean, has he been a manager that's been sort of underrated somewhat, and Burnley as well, somewhat under-considered with the way that they play their football? There's a sort of almost a trope attached to Burnley about being a certain type of team, but they're maybe better than that trope.
I agree, Phil. I think Sean's done a brilliant job. And I think because he's done the job, because he's not had great resources, let's be fair. He's not had the money which some of the other clubs have had. He's had to pick up players from lower leagues and probably take a little bit of time to see if he can turn them into Premier League players, mould them into how he wants them to play. And I say this all the time, Phil, is if football is only played the one way by every team, it would be the most boring sport there is. The reason why it's probably the most exciting sport is because the unpredictabilities, the different styles, this team play 3 at the back, 4 at the back, do they set it deep, do they press? Every week you've got different setups. So that's why I think that having different styles in the Premier League is what we want. If it was all the same, people would soon turn off.
And you talk about how impressed you are with your attitude of your players. Is part of that down to the fact that this season, they've had to probably deal with a bit more expectation because of what you achieved last year. So therefore, there's dealing with that on top of the challenge in front of you over 90 minutes on a Saturday or a Tuesday is another pressure.
Yeah, no, I've said a couple of times, Phil, that I do think raising expectations is part of the manager's job, because that probably means that you're doing well with the team. But then when you raise it, then you start saying, hey, wait a minute here, this is expecting an awful lot of a team which is relatively new. I think and I'm going to use the word rapid climb at the moment to the higher reaches of the Premier League is something which has been unbelievable amongst the players. It's been a great achievement to get up there. And not that, I keep it going now at the moment. We've only been really doing this for a year and a half. We've only just been out of relegation a year and a half ago. So we're only really at the early stages of trying to show that we are a side with really big expectations. But I'm quite happy to carry off. I'm quite pleased that we've got big expectations, and I hope that we're able to keep it up. Maybe we can, maybe we can't.
In the NFL, there's a saying: if someone gets injured, it's always next man up. You've obviously had some injuries, and players have come back in and getting more regular time. How much does that reflect on the individuals, but also about the squad ethos that you have? That players will come in, perform, and still pull off results, even if they've had to wait their time to get their chance this season.
Well, that's what happens in football. There's everybody who's been a footballer a while had to wait until somebody's got an injury or an opportunity to get in the team. And when you get that opportunity, it's up to you to grab it. I tend to try not to talk too much about injured players. I want to concentrate on the ones who we can play and how they're doing, and make sure we give those boys the confidence and the belief that they're in, and it's up to them to do well.